Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we talk about all things fandom and we talk about them in a positive way. If that's something that appeals to you, you know you've come to the right place. And this is Terrifying Tuesday, where we just talk about something horror related. However, this is also the last Tuesday before New Year's Eve. Now, if you're planning on going out, you might want something to watch either before you go out or after you get back in that's a little horror related. So we have our picks of a few movies that you could watch. So let's jump into it. All right, so here's 5 movies that you can watch New Year's Eve, either before you go out or after you get back in, if you're looking for that terrifying little moment. And stick around because number 1 is a classic. Now, first off is Holidays. Holidays doesn't really fall into the category of just New Year's Eve, having several different stories that take place during the course of different holidays. So it has Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Halloween, Christmas, and of course a New Year's Eve segment. And while it don't really fall into that category of just being on New Year's Eve, the fact that they do include a horror story about New Year's Eve is a bit of an oddity in the horror movie genre. There are several that you can find out there, but in terms of this movie being by different directors and giving its take on different holidays, I thought I would include this one because it is worth watching. If you like a good horror movie where there's a couple short stories and anthology series, this one you could do worse than. That film is actually a 2016 film. And like I said, you can do worse than this one. But our next pick is the 1999 End of Days starring Arnie. And Arnold Schwarzenegger in this movie is pretty amazing because he's playing sort of against type for himself, but it is a horror movie. So it's a throwback to kind of that sci-fi horror he played in Terminator. In this movie, The End of Days, the devil is trying to get this girl to have his baby before the new millennia. So Arnold is tasked with protecting this girl in order to prevent this from happening. He has to impregnate her before the end of days, which is New Year's Eve of 1999. So by the year 2000, she has to be pregnant. So Arnold is tasked with protecting her. It's action-packed enough for the action enthusiast, but it does deal with a horror type of theme, and for that reason, it's on this list. Now, next up on our list is another really good horror movie that you can watch, and this one is Bloody New Year. Bloody New Year is a different kind of little horror movie, at least in terms of its plot. The movie is a 1987 movie, and it sort of is weird because it starts off with it being 1959 at a New Year's Eve party. Then we jump forward in time to July, where some people go into a hotel that has Christmas decorations, despite the fact that it is July. Now, from there, it gets a little bit of timey-wimey, a little bit sci-fi, maintaining that horror vibe, however. Now, I'm not saying it's the best movie. It doesn't have the most spectacular plot, or really, you have to follow the movie in order to get what it's trying to do. And I applaud its effort because even though being a sci-fi time travel type of movie with mega horror vibes sewn into it, just having this very different type of plot, but also taking place on New Year's Eve. So, next up, we have to talk about Terror Train. Terror Train is a movie that you may have heard about. It's one of the more popular slasher films in terms of taking place at New Year's Eve. And it is also one of the more popular horror-themed killer movies out there, only because it stars Jamie Lee Curtis. In a cruel fraternity prank, a pledge is lowered into a dark room where he's supposed to be getting into bed with this girl. However, they have replaced the girl with a corpse that was left in over Christmas vacation because they're medical students. And it traumatizes him so much that he ends up in a mental hospital. Jump forward to 3 years later, the fraternity and sororities are having a New Year's Eve party aboard a train. Now, you can guess what happens from here. They start getting knocked off one by a mysterious masked person. And who is this person? Well, that becomes the question. Is it the guy that they pranked who ended up in a mental institution? Did he escape? We start to find out the answers as it goes along just a tad, and Jamie Lee Curtis is the final girl, because that is Jamie Lee Curtis's job in all horror movies she's in. I know, but it is what it is. And it's really cool because this movie also stars David Copperfield. That David Copperfield, the magician. It's a pretty decent little film if you want something scary for New Year's Eve. Also, now an honorable mention. There is a remake of this movie that came out in 2022. From what I've heard, it's a somewhat faithful adaptation. However, it lacks all the mystery that made the first film exciting. It really fails on delivering the premise that the first one did. Now, you can check it out, and it is a 2022 film, so it's a relatively new one. Now, at our number one spot is New Year's Evil. New Year's Evil is one that I personally just love because New Year's Evil is one of the first New Year's horror movies I ever saw. Actually, in fact, it is the first New Year's Eve horror-themed movie I ever saw. The movie is a 1980 movie focusing on a punk rock DJ named Diane Sullivan, also known as Blaze to her fans. Now, the thing of it is that she receives a mysterious phone call, and a killer is going to kill somebody in each time zone as the clock strikes midnight. She is getting these calls. The police are trying to stop it. It's a ride like you wouldn't believe as he goes from time zone to time zone, trying to kill someone every time the clock strikes midnight. Now, the movie is really good. It has a few terrifying little moments in there, and it's a crime drama mixed with a horror movie, mixed with suspense. This is kind of that classic Italian type of horror movie, or at least it tried to be. And I'm not going to say it hit the mark on that, but it definitely has these vibes of this sort of anything can happen. The whole thing is just awesome. I highly recommend this one. It is one of my faves, and I am so glad that it's in a couple different places on streaming, so it shouldn't be that hard to find. So if you're looking for some movies, those were my picks for some of the movies you should be watching this New Year's Eve. Don't forget to leave us a comment in the comment box below, letting us know if you've seen any of these movies and what you think of them. Also, don't forget to share this video with all of your friends so they can be a part of the conversation as well. Smash that like button because it helps the channel and we appreciate it so much. Miko says we need more subscribers and you don't want to disappoint Miko. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single video we do. And then yes, friends, at the end of the day, fandom is family.